Hola amigos and welcome back to another episode of La Vida Verde podcast. I'm your host Matthew Human. We are here at Finca Vida Verde, and today my guest is another one of my great friends and neighbors, Karina Wildgoods. And Karina is a wild woman. She was born in Poland. She immigrated to Canada. She's now living in La Covia, just down the road, with plans to build an Alegria village right across the street. She's a female entrepreneur, a conscious mother, and the creator of the new children's book, Wild Chakra Kids. And it's going to be a wonderful conversation. Always a pleasure to talk to Karina. So stay tuned, and we hope you enjoy. Okay, Karina Wildgoods, welcome to La Vida Verde podcast.
Thank you for having me.
First, I want to know, Wildgoods is not your given last name, so why Wildgoods? What is the significance of Wildgoods?
Sure, I started playing around with it probably about 12 years ago, and it caught my eye, so I built a whole Instagram kind of following out of it, but really the intention behind it was to kind of get back to nature and get back to the goods of the wild within ourselves and inspired by nature, because we've got a whole terrain in here that we can explore.
Okay.
And a lot of people are on our planet, I have found, are still like really stuck in the mental plane and don't embody some of that energy and kind of come in and get a little bit more present, get the bare feet on the ground, and that's kind of my mission for myself. And
the Wildgoods. Okay, I've known you. I've known you as Karina for so long, but yes, your last name is new to me. So Instagram, Karina Wildgoods. So is it okay we can talk about your past and your history? You were born...
Yeah, absolutely. But first, I just want to say thank you for having me on the show, and how inspired I am with what you're doing here at Finca Verde, because you've been my neighbor and friend for like 3 years. And actually, some of the coolest connections I've made is at your gatherings here, when we have the fire and all of our friends are here and people are playing and singing, and I end up having much deeper connections with our community because of that. So I just want to acknowledge that and mention it.
Thank you, my friend.
I love it, buddy. You're one of my favorite
too.
humans.
I know. Oh, Karina, it means so much to me.
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yes, and that's one of my... Yeah, and I remember also, like, when you first, during COVID, you came here, we were, like, you were one of our COVID buddies. You kind of, like, in the second wave, not the original, like, COVID bubble, but, like, in the second, when we're all, like, well, we're going to open up a little bit. And
about a year into COVID.
Yeah, you were one of the people that was coming
around. Getting teletransported here.
You were one of the people that was, like, around, and we would come over. We were shooting pistol guns and pellet guns at cans. And
my kind of thing.
Getting ready to, like, take on the world in case we had to.
Yeah, putting the phones away and kind of just getting back to nature, which was why I loved being here, because we weren't tuned into the craziness of what was happening. We can talk about that a little bit later, but it just felt very, rustic and holy, and and I like that, and real. So.
Yeah, I know that your spirit is so rooted in that, and I love that about you too, because you kind of walk these two worlds. Like, you are a female entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman, you have an office in town, but then you're also like, hike up to Taco Tal, and let's get that fire started.
I don't know what it is about my life journey, but I definitely dabble in the extremes of life, like both light and dark, and have gone to the depths of both and be able to like pull myself out of there. Maybe it's a bit of shape-shifting, but I love it. It gives me variety and presence in life, and makes for good conversation too with people, to really get that depth and to really see people and feel heard.
What's your do you mind me asking your astrological sign?
Sure. I'm a Libra.
A Libra.
And I've got 5 planets actually for the astrology people in Libra in the 12th house, which is Kaipacha, our friend or neighbor, told me it's all about pulling up the dark shadow and bringing it to the light to world. Which is really interesting, and it's also in the sign of Libra, which is a sign of justice and harmony and bringing things to light, which has definitely been my path on this planet, and it hasn't been easy. Sometimes I'm that one person in the room that will hold that accountability, but doesn't mean you're always likable for doing that. So it's taken tremendous strength to do that, and it can sometimes feel like a lonely place too, always being the ball buster and checker. So
well, I appreciate that about you, though. That's maybe one of those things we have in common is we're both a little bit outspoken and like not really. Neither I know that about you, that you're not afraid to say when you're feeling something or when you're seeing something or thinking something. Yeah. I honestly, there's a lot of, I think that's generally seen in our culture as a masculine quality, but it actually needs to be more feminine. Like more women need to learn to use their voice and speak up. So I honor that in you as being a
thank you.
Strong woman standing up for yourself. And
yeah, I just can't stay quiet. I don't know what it is. I mean, one of my biggest things is stillness. I love to be quiet. I don't over talk. It's not what I'm saying. But when I see an injustice or something happening, it's like buzzing in me. I can't sleep. I have to call it out. And I don't know why I have that kind of spiritual warrior energy about me. Probably a little bit to do with where I come from in my past, which probably a question.
Let's talk about your past. Okay, so you were born in Poland, right?
That's right. I was born in 1981 in Wrocław, Poland. And it was the height of the Union Revolution. For people who know what was happening in Eastern Europe, it was under Soviet rule, so it was communist state. And my family and me.
Poland was a Soviet state.
Yeah, the Soviets were there.
I don't think I really knew that.
Yeah, it was the communist regime. I mean, the Berlin Wall fell in 1987.
Right.
Sorry, 1989. So by 1987, we had already escaped. But that was only 500 miles away from my upbringing, my childhood. So for the first 7 crucial years of my childhood, that kind of imprint of suppression and oppression got dumped on me, and it was thick and it was heavy and it was a lot of darkness and a lot of shadow. So
what was your experience a little bit? I'm curious, like what did that oppression like look like? That's how you perceive it. So I'm curious, like can you give us some like examples of like what that was like? Or
yeah, that's a really good question. So there's a lot of abuse and violence on the streets. The tanks were on the streets. The Soviets were patrolling with guns. Like our neighbor, for instance, got shot and murdered for being out past curfew. Stories, and I mean, we're talking lineage, post-generational, post-war trauma stuff, right? Because this is like the first 2 world wars happened. Many people know what went on over there,
right? But
it's systemic, and a lot of that trauma gets passed down in our families. Right. So can you imagine people, and I know this is really heavy to say, but like my lineage has been raped a lot, mentally, physically, spiritually, and that passes down. And if you don't have the tools to kind of process and integrate some of that heaviness, unfortunately your grandparents dump it on your parents dump it on you, and so on it goes. And it's not just Poland. I mean, if we look around in every culture on the planet, it's like that. And I think this is the big inspiration for me to go into this kind of self-accountability work, to be responsible for my energy field, because it did impact me. And it took me like 20 years of turning around, getting lost in all sorts of substances and people and trying to find myself, because I was lost and anxious because all this kind of stuff got dumped on me. So not only did it get dumped on me, but I was also experiencing it on a societal, cultural level when we were there, because people were trying to get ahead and they just couldn't. Because the communist state would take a lot of your wages. They would keep you subdued. People had money to spend, but they devalued the money there. So you go to the store, there'd be just bread and milk on the shelves and 1 kilo of meat for your family. So can you imagine what that does to like a man who needs to provide for his family? I mean, it breaks your spirit, right? And that's what it's meant to do. So anyway, so to bring some lightness to these conversations is my family's very resilient. We've been through a lot, and I'm grateful to my parents, because even though all this trauma was happening, like we've really overcome a lot and integrated some of those shadows together. They're still married, they're still alive. We have a phenomenal relationship. We really kind of help each other. And this is the part that inspires me about the adversity in life of the human spirit. You can be faced with some of the darkest stuff and still overcome it somehow and focus on the light. So actually my dad was a black belt judo star in Poland for the Soviet team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was going to the Olympics. It's kind of a Bruce Lee story, and one of his trainers snapped his back because he put too many weights on.
Your dad's back.
Yeah, but before he was 23, he saw 33 countries. He traveled all over the world, and he saw life outside of those walls. So that was his drive and inspiration, because, everywhere people were drinking away all the pain. And he just, from his judo training, was like, no, I don't want this life. So he took our family and kind of escaped. But you couldn't tell anybody that you were leaving. Couldn't sell stuff, nothing, or you just go to jail for life back then.
It was illegal to leave?
you could go on like a holiday. They would give you like a pass if you were somebody, and because of his judo,
Right.
he got a leave for a week, but you couldn't sell anything. There's only a small percent of money that you can bring, and they never turned back. Like they told our family, my grandparents, the night before that they were leaving. There were tears. Can you imagine like the shock and the separation and abandonment? We're leaving. We're out of here. We're going to Canada. They got a good family plan.
Do you think they understood? Your grandparents? Or do you think they were like, they didn't really understand so
I
much?
mean, I think they understood, but it was still hard.
Yeah, it's hard,
it's trauma. It's abandonment, right?
Right. More trauma.
But the nation already abandoned everybody, so it was a self-reflection of what was going on inside. And there's so many of these stories on the planet. I mean, look at what's going on in Israel right now. In almost every area of our planet, it's still very prevalent. I mean, we live in paradise here.
I mean, what comes to mind is Ukraine and Russia. I mean, right now.
Oh my gosh,
like...
so much happening. Yeah. And it took me a lot of work to get here. It didn't just happen overnight. It was on my vision board. I took a lot of, stuff to get here.
So
it was all
okay. So yeah, and it's funny because I saw your dad walk. I was walking down the street like a few months ago, and I saw this man hiking up, and he was like running up the road, and he was all handsome and young, and I was like, hey, he starts talking to me, and I was like, yeah, who are you? And he's like, oh, yes, my daughter Karina, and I was like, you're Karina's dad? He looks like he could be your boyfriend.
His 40s.
I know. He looks
well,
like
that's kind of weird. But,
well, no. I mean, like, but he's young. He's really youthful.
Yeah. I think it's the strength of mind again, right? Because you either go spiral downwards when stuff like that happens to you, or you really get that resilience and want to make something different.
Well, and the judo side of it too. I mean, that's what, martial arts is all about, mental training and mental, strength. So as much as it is physical strength.
It is.
So you guys got your family moved to Canada when?
1987 we landed. And it was like right into Scarborough, more trauma, which is like where all the immigrants got dumped. So
where is that?
That's just outside of Toronto.
Okay.
And then my dad worked really hard with my mom to get us out. So within a year, we were living in Northern Ontario on the lake. Had a great childhood, but still some things, because obviously what we left followed the residual of some of that emotional and mental hardness followed us. So we had to resolve that as a family.
And how many of you have sisters, brothers?
I have 2 younger sisters and an older brother. I have a 16-year-old now, and my siblings are just starting to have kids, so I've been in it for a long time. But
so you're kind of like you have a 16-year-old, they have young children, so you're right. Like kind of like you had to grow up a little bit faster, maybe.
Yeah, I did, and it was tough because even at 25, 26, I had her in Toronto. And women back then weren't having kids till their 40s. So I really felt like a teenager in this culture. But I was like considered old for Poland to be having kids at 25.
Right, 26. Exactly.
My grandma had like 4 by 19. So I was feeling that pressure.
Karina, when will you have a nice... As I'm speaking like Hebrew now or like a Yiddish. Like, when are you going to have a nice...
It was like that. But I grew up in chaos. So it was kind of terrifying to have one too, because I knew I had to face everything. Which is what happened, and this is why I became a conscious parent, because all this patterns and trauma was coming up as I was parenting my kid, and there was nowhere to run. Like, you're just on display 24/7, and unless you really learn to integrate that emotional trauma that you were raised with, you're going to dump it on your kid. So I traveled the whole world. I was lucky to have an amazing career.
Before you had your daughter?
Yeah, I did.
What was your career?
I studied psychology and philosophy in university, but I ended up leaving a few credits shy because I got into, which is something that, I'm not proud of, but transparent about, because it was the beginning of my career in sales and development. It was the oil and gas industry, if you can believe that, which is so far
You did
away.
sales and development in the oil and gas industry.
I almost sold my soul to the devil. The money got dangled in front of me. I remember the day very clearly where I walked away from that career because it was eating my soul alive, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I wanted something different for me and my daughter, and
what was it about? I'm just curious, like, what was it about that career? I mean, yes, like those of us in the know, like, know that like oil and gas is not a regenerative,
Exactly.
industry. But like, was that what it was, or was there something else like that was
Well,
drawing
it was
you
all
away
of it.
from it?
It was all of it. It was
You were
like
becoming
that whole,
aware of all those things.
Yeah, I was becoming aware of the environmental impact, but something wasn't in alignment in my own being, because it wasn't a true reflection of my values at my deepest soul level. It wasn't my mission and my dharma. So and also city life, to be honest. I was in Toronto for a decade. I did the whole stilettos, the party club.
Yeah,
you do it for like maybe a decade, but if you're really listening to yourself inside, eventually you start to feel dead, and you're like, this is not how I want to be living. And luckily my parents took me camping for 2 months out of the year. Every summer my mom would take us, my dad would drive up on the Fridays with the family, and I started getting memories of this kind of barefoot wildling childhood that I had. So I was like, okay, that's it, I'm done. I don't know what it is. I packed up my daughter and me, and we drove across Canada to a little island called Salt Spring Island. And it's like on
off
a little
the western coast.
Yeah, it's very close to Orcas Island near Seattle.
Yeah.
Close to your U.S.
Yeah, I know Orcas really well, so it's similar. I've been on a boat. We took the ferry one time from Vancouver, north of where's the port, whatever, the Port Angeles or whatever, up to
I've been there.
Vancouver Island.
Course.
Yeah.
And there's orcas and eagles, and everybody there was incredible, like a lot of thrivers and land survivors. So I signed her up, and by the way, I really try to raise her alternatively through
Ellie.
private.
We're talking about Ellie.
Yeah, through private education. So she's a Waldorf kid, Rudolf Steiner, and I never really put her into the system. Although I used it once. I think grade 1 she was there for a few months. She learned the mathematics, the English, the spelling, and then. And then we were
and then you put her into Waldorf.
In a Waldorf for the remainder of her education. But what inspired me about moving across Canada was because I put her on this waiting list for this wilderness program called Wolf Kids.
Wolf Kids.
So she was there for 4 years, and there was like no academics. It wasn't like the traditional school system at all. They were just outdoors 24/7. That was their education. We had drumming and foraging for food and rites of passage circles. They would prep their own fires. They would sit with elders who would pass down stories. They learned how to do bow drill, how to start a fire without matches. So it was like a full-on wilderness training submersion. And,
awesome.
Oh, it was one of the most incredible experiences
Congo bees there
of our life. So this is going on my 7th year now in community. It's not something new to me, like moving down here in Ecovia. In community life, it takes a lot of transparency to live in community, and a lot of bravery, right? Because it's like we're all seeking connection and yearning for it. We don't really get that in cities as much, but when you get out here, it's all of a sudden like there's nowhere to hide and run. You have to do your inner work or it spits you out.
Did you have a bit of a community in Salt Spring?
Yeah,
like
of course.
Underground kind of conscious, cool
Absolutely.
community?
They're just really coming
just
on me because
all
my pheromones are getting
It's all
activated.
your pheromones they're coming after you. It's the Congo bees.
But I like how hot it is in Costa Rica because it helps with the heavy metal detox, right?
Totally, is sweating.
It's just you're just in a constant sauna.
That's a nice way to go away, Congo bee. So you have how old was Ellie when you moved here?
She was, I guess, 13 we came.
Oh, so yeah, not long. And she's like 16 now, right? So
she's 16 now, so we've been here about 3 years. But how that happened
feels like so much longer. I don't know why, but
I know. You feel like I've known you for like 20 years. I just feel like I've died and been reborn at least like 8 times in my life.
And what brought you to Costa Rica from Salt Spring Island?
To be honest, my intuition. I felt something messed up going on the planet. Because I arrived here and 5 days later, the borders closed. And I remember feeling...
it was right before
Yeah, it was
COVID.
right before. And I just remember the strong wave being like, go see your parents in Costa Rica.
Because your parents lived here.
Yeah, we lived here. We've been coming for 25 years. The first time I was here in Tamarindo was when I was 17. There was nothing there. There was no casino, none of what's going on over there.
I haven't been there in a while.
There was no airport even in Liberia when I was first here many years ago.
And so your parents have a land down here?
We have some properties on the coast.
Business or?
Business and personal, but we've been here for a while. But I wasn't living here full time. So I felt this strong wave, this intuitive message, like, go now. And when I got here, when the borders started closing and all this madness started happening, I was like, oh, okay, my vision board is finally coming true. Like, and this is why I joked. I got teletransported.
You literally had a vision board?
Yeah, I had a vision board of one day moving to Costa Rica, but it was like almost like forced, right? Because it was like, go now. And then I just left this whole life behind, like a house, car, all my things, 3 floors.
Oh.
Ellie's friends at Waldorf Education, like everything. We just left, and I knew very quickly that I just needed to be here now. Costa Rica is a really special place. You know, it really is. The nature here is phenomenal. There's so many wilderness people here, survival skills, and I like that kind of living.
Yeah, I remember I had some friends who took tracker school with Tom Brown Jr. He is if you've never read this book, Tracker, it's a really amazing book, but he's a survival training expert, and he trains the U.S. Marines. And
Amazing.
Anyways, he has these tracker schools. And I remember hearing, even before I moved here, a friend of mine told me that Costa Rica was, according to Tom Brown Jr., one of the most survivable places in the world, based on the climate, the food, the water, everything.
Yeah,
so
it's all here. It's all here. But it takes strength to live here, too. It's not
Totally.
easy, and it takes a lot to adapt to. And you know, we have our comforts in North America that the jungle just kind of eats everything here. So you have to really like tune
learn
in,
to adapt
and you have to live the Pura Vida way, right?
Well, fortunately, we have generations of indigenous people and generations of Costa Rican people who have, figured most of it out. And then we're a new wave of immigrants bringing a different kind of knowledge. And that's what I love about this area is like it's such an integration of all those things: indigenous wisdom, Tico Campesino wisdom, and I don't know what you'd call like new age culture. Like, I don't think we ever, like in the U.S., I find the new age movement to be kind of like boring and like kind of like just not grounded always. And I love that but it has a lot of great aspects, all of the ideals of like, alternative education and communication and like just some of the things that are being integrated: yoga, movement, exercise, dance, like play. Those are some of the good things, but then integrating that with like the campesino earth-based and the indigenous earth-based culture here, it's kind of like that cool like integration of it all.
It is. There's a lot of amazing people and characters here, and I mean that's why I love all my neighbors, because everybody's doing something like super epic on the planet right now, and there's like all eyes on Costa Rica.
That's why
it's
I can
really
have this
inspiring.
podcast.
Exactly. Like there's so many incredible people that live in this valley alone that are really making huge strides and contributions in our planet around some of the sustainable living, conscious living. Just taking self-accountability and building the life and dreams, right?
And I'll say Ellie, your daughter, is amazing. One of my favorite, like, of all the young people in the community. I love her. She's like, I think she's kind of like, I sense her kind of backing out a little bit, but she was like the baker in the community for a while. Like, if you needed a cake baked, you gave her she
does everything: kids camps, babysitting, dog walking, cake
She's
baking.
an entrepreneur. At like 14, she had like the baking industry on lock in Ecovia. So.
Well, and I think and feel this is because I raised her privately, and through these kind of programs that open her mind, her imagination, the arts, and now as a 16-year-old, she's able to handle some of that discipline and structure. She immersed herself into actually one of the local schools here that's private, but for Ticos, there's a few expats, but she learned the language fluent within a year.
She's fluent.
She's fluent now.
In 1 year.
It's incredible. And this goes to show that if you just give kids that freedom to play when they're younger and focus on some of the more artistic, imaginative, barefoot running on the earth, that eventually they have that self-direction and they're able to know their path and trust it, which is... I'm really, really proud. I'm really proud
you
of
ought
her
to be.
and myself, because I really came from... a not great situation, and was able to turn it around. And I really just wanted to come on here to inspire people that if you're depressed, if you're suffering, no matter what you're going through, there are tools and ways through it to be able to like really sit with yourself and feel that emotional signature that you're processing, and like have it actually leave your cells and your body, and have the vision to really create the life that you want. It is possible. And it starts with community, I feel. Support and community.
Yeah, community it's a whole thing in and of itself, but it's like one thing you always get in community is to really see yourself. It's like being in a relationship, but with like a lot of people. It's like, those reflections, because the more intimate you get with people,
it's true.
It's like they're going to show you, like you become comfortable with them, and then they feel more comfortable to share, like, you know what? Actually, this didn't really resonate with me the way you reacted to that, or the way you approached this, or ideas. Maybe you want to try doing something like this, or even just being inspired by other people.
Yeah, it's hard to hide here. It really is, because everybody's a strong mirror, and it's like almost like a social experiment.
Especially those outspoken ones, like you and me. So I do want to actually take a moment and
Sure.
This is a good transition to talk about your book.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Wild Chakra Kids.
That's right.
And
I'll show you the front cover.
Oh, you have brought it with you?
here. I have the one mock
Is
copy.
this like the world premiere of it? Have you been promoting it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, some media is going to start picking it up in the U.S. It's actually launched in the U.S. a couple weeks ago, only available right now in the U.S. But I'm really inspired by it because it focuses on the rainbow body of kids, and kind of now sharing my history of what I went through. Mm-hmm. I went through a lot of shadow and darkness and was able to find kind of like the colors inside of myself. Am I perfect? No. Do I still have hard days? Absolutely. Do I feel isolated sometimes or depressed? Yes, I'm human. But it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and now I have my tools and my people, and I really wanted to kind of leave a legacy of a gift. I know it's just one coloring book right now, but I do want to build a whole brand out of it to kind of help give kids these tools and guides on how to overcome some of these layers and stages within themselves so that they can learn to be vibrant and empowered.
This is exciting. And it's not just coloring. Wow, it's so beautiful. Look at that.
So there's the book, and it's got 48 pages. It goes into the energy field and how it all plays together, how certain things lower your energy and some things make it higher, and really just drawing awareness and embodying exercises for
about
kids
the different chakras, how to express
how to
yourself,
be powerful, how to speak your truth,
be in your heart.
Like
I see this. What it says? Go. What does that say? Go
wild
and play.
Yeah, so this is really dear to my heart. Look at this coloring exercise. Beyond your skin, hair, and eye color, who are you really inside? Draw that. And
I love that.
I just want to show you one thing. Oh, he wants to see it. Oh, thank you. So I just want to show you one thing, because I've done some workshops here and there, because I've been working on it for like 6 years. But look at this cute stuff some of the kids have been drawing. Like this one has an animal spirit that the kids drew. But in this picture, he's sad. So this could be a great tool for parents, social workers, counselors to really open up the conversation about what's going on inside of you. Why is your, little friend here sad? Did something happen?
Totally.
And this is why, yeah, I know, but it's like, it's an important tool because we have this whole metaverse thing happening now, and everybody's on electronics. And really, I wanted to inspire kids and adults and our own inner children to just kind of stay connected to nature and who you are and the colors inside of you, because it's terrifying what's happening with all the AI. I mean, I believe in support in parts of it, but there needs to be a balance. And living here, there's a balance. But what about all the kids in the epidemic with the mental health problems, the depression, the suicides? So, given my background, what I've been through, it's like, let's shake it out a little bit. Leave a little something behind that's going to make the world a little brighter place. But
What's going on in this one?
So this little girl drew like crystal hands with her animal spirit and her protection bubble.
She drew it upside down?
Yeah, she drew it upside down.
Okay.
But here's her little protection and the crystal hands.
I love that.
Little golden heart. So
this
is
like
this is the part that excites me the most about this book.
On top.
Because I really want to see what the kids end up drawing, because it's such a cool conversation starter. So anyway, it's available now, and you can find it at wildchakrakids.com, and my Instagram handle is Wildgoods.
So in Instagram at Wildgoods.
Yes, and my last name is Karina Olszewski, for those people that are interested. It's a mouthful. But I love going by Wildgoods because it's just part of my essence and my whole mission.
Is it say Wildgoods or Olszewski on there?
It says Wildgoods.
Wildgoods.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and I remember a year or so ago, I actually edited that.
You came over. We had a tea.
I did an editing session.
You caught a couple mistakes, which was great.
People don't know this, that I'm a grammatical. I'm a grammar, like hardcore about grammar.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm actually editing another book for a friend right now too. So it's something I like, kind of low key enjoy doing. But it takes me a long time. But yes, Karina gave me a tea. That was our trade. I went through the thing, and she made tea and made me lunch. You made me lunch.
Yeah, our conversations are always deep, though. We always feel like we do some sort of inner work together, and then we go back out into our little societies, and off we go.
And let's be honest, we trigger each other sometimes.
We do, but this is part of the work, because in the triggers is if you get reactive, that means you're going into an unconscious spiral. But if you actually catch the trigger and do the inner work and feel through it and talk it through consciously and compassionately, then you choose to consciously respond, and that's when it integrates and shifts and the growth happens.
Radical accountability, friends.
Yes. So, I mean, this is part of community living. You have to be really good at conflict resolution because it comes up a lot. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's not easy, right?
Yes.
Because you have to be vulnerable and transparent all the time, or people call you out on it. So...
Well,
but that's where we grow.
Always appreciate that about you, Karina.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is there anything else? What's next? What's for the future? Let's do a quick touch on the future of Karina Wildgoods. So you've released your Chakra Kids book.
Yes.
That's going to be releasing internationally. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm going to be focusing on growing the brand. I also do business developments. I help companies scale, and actually in the U.S. I have some clients. And I'm going to be building in Alegria, a natural build, which I'm really excited about. Probably in the next year and a half it'll be done.
A stone's throw from our farm.
I know, really, like 200 meters or something. So I'm really excited about that because I love all of our neighbors, like I said, and what everyone's up to. But really, I'm just looking forward to what's next and just being real with myself and honest. And when the waves come, ride them. When you fall, just... be there and feel it.
Sit for a second, get back up,
exactly.
And keep going somewhere else.
And I think this is the one thing I want to mention, because in North America we have this kind of mental sickness that's pushed on us that you need to be productive all the time and do. And one of the things that I noticed when I actually got to Costa Rica is that my nervous system gave out. Like I entered a state of more being here because I just needed to rest from all the chaos and craziness of the North America. So it's like finding the balance between being, like really being your essence and slowing things down and being still enough to self-reflect and notice what is going on in my life. Is this how I want it to play out? Where can I bring more consciousness and awareness? Where can I shine that flashlight on it and transmute some of that darkness on our planet? And it takes great courage and skill to do that. But in communities like this, it seems like more and more people are committed to that.
Definitely. And also, like, there's also this thing I find about the culture, and it has to do with nature too, because we're on a 12 and 12 cycle here. We're 12 dark, 12 light. Different, like in the US right now, it doesn't get dark until like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's dark at 6 o'clock every night here, year round. We don't have those changing of the cycles. And because of that, the Costa Rican culture is kind of adapted to this very, like, it's very almost like clockwork, almost like people tend to kind of get on a schedule, and it's like, you know, I'd say most people real campesinos oftentimes will wake up well before 5 o'clock, like 4 o'clock even.
Oh yeah, that's normal here.
You know, but I generally, like, I'm up by 6 o'clock almost every day. It's dark at 6, so you eat your dinner at or around 6 o'clock. Some people do go to crazy and go to the city and stay up all night, but whatever.
Ooh.
But like, no, sometimes we do this. Sometimes we do this. Yes,
I'm missing out.
You should come with us next time we go to the city.
I'm usually in bed by 8:30.
Exactly.
It's like we all joke here because 9 p.m. here is like midnight.
Jungle midnight, we call it.
Yeah, you're just in bed and you wake up early.
I call 10 jungle midnight.
Well, I'm like more 8:30 by then. I'm just like done, you know, with nature and having my circadian rhythm in check. But it's beautiful living here. You've got the river here, the fresh fruit growing, the bare feet, but it's also nice to kind of go into those other areas as needed.
Yeah, you're one of those. You walk on both.
Yeah, I
in both
shape shift
worlds.
A little bit
So,
for sure.
Yeah, so we'll
Depending on
next
where
time
the flashlight is needed.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a really great conversation, Karina. I really appreciate you making the space to come up here and she hiked up. I always tell people, I'm like, it's a 20-minute hike. It's not nothing. It actually you'll be sweating by the time you get here.
It's good though.
But it's freaking so much healthier, and like, why do you need a car to drive up a bumpy road? It's so much nicer to walk.
Well, this is why I love what's happening in this valley here, because there's like 3 or 4 communities and they're all connected by paths, so it's becoming a village.
Right.
And it's almost setting the example around the world of what's possible.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I love the most about this community. I'd say that all the time. My inspiration, my introduction to community was rainbow gatherings, and the things I love the most about rainbow gatherings was that there's no cars, and you walk from each camp to other camp, and they're far away sometimes, but it's like I was a chubby kid, and I'm like, I was having, in the U.S. I have to go to the gym to exercise. Here, you really can get that exercise just by being part of a community.
Yeah, and
I like that.
It is. It's a really great place to be. And like I said, it takes a lot of work to get here. And once you're here, you got to be real with yourself. So the people who are listening, if you're considering this kind of lifestyle, just, really get honest with yourself about if you do it, just commit 100% or it's going to spit you out anyway. Right. But just know that the people are here to help you, and it's going to be one of your biggest rides in life, because it's like a skin shedding of the snake. It's just, there's so many layers, and and you're just like humbly melting and crying half the time, and you want to quit so many times, but you don't, and you just getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and making deeper and deeper friends along the way. So
you've got the layer of like nature, the deep nature diversity that you may not be used to. You've got the ecological kind of minded, conscious, eco-conscious community, like international community, people from like literally like hundreds of countries, or I don't even know if there's
represented.
Like many countries are in this valley, like at least 50.
Yeah.
And then you've also got like the Costa Rican Latin culture, which is a whole another culture that many Northerners are not really used to. So it's like these kind of 3 really different lifestyle realities that
cultures coming together.
Kind of, it's a lot, but has been like so rewarding for me too. So
yeah, and I mean, all this stuff coming together, just kind of to wrap it up, I guess, is like you really got to watch what's going on mentally and emotionally, because there is a lot of layering that happens, and respecting the Tico culture here is a thing to learn. Everything happens slower. Sometimes mistakes get made, people don't show up on time, but when you come here all strung out from North America or Europe, it's like a thing, right? Like, talk about triggers. And then eventually you kind of learn to just accept it and enter more of a flow state, which is really beautiful, because somehow everything just kind of works out if you really surrender and let go and trust.
I used to have to smoke weed.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when I was here, it was just every time I would go to a tropical place, like, same thing on Hawaii or Maui, like, it's always a little bit slower. People are a little more in the moment. And as a Northerner, you're always kind of thinking about the future. You're making plans. I mean, it's nature. You're always thinking about, where's my next meal going to come from? If you're a Northerner, if you're indigenous Northerner, you have to think about how am I going to get through this winter?
Yeah.
Like, you have to think about how am I going to store my food?
Wood's a big thing.
How am I going to get my wood? What am I going to eat all winter? Because there's no fruits on the trees in the middle of December or whatever there. So it's a totally different culture. So yes, cannabis was my medicine. Bring me back into present. But now I think after a certain amount of time being here, there's an integration. And the trees itself also has a major healing effect.
Breathwork ends up being the tool, like over any substances. The breathing communities, like really consciously breathing, like in and out, like right. Like you gotta breathe through stuff here because if you distract for too long, again, there's those checkers and accountability people that come along.
I used to smoke lots of weed before I learned how to breathe.
But I'm glad you're a Northerner because I know if we were in Game of Thrones, we'd both be Northerners.
Hey, the wall.
Yeah.
We'd go to the wall.
We would.
I've been to some walls. You're over the wall.
I've been to some walls. I've been behind some walls, and I've broken down some walls. Let me tell you that.
The Berlin Wall, the Trump Wall. There's a lot of walls going on.
No kidding.
There are a lot of walls. Okay, well, there's so much more we can talk about. This has been lovely, Karina.
Keep your hearts open.
Karina Wildgoods. It's just Wildgoods.
At Wildgoods. You can follow the story there.
And the book is Wild Chakra Kids.
Yeah.
Yay! I'm
Inspiring
so
kids to journey
proud
the
of
rainbow
you,
body.
Karina.
Yeah, thank you
It's
so
so
much.
beautiful.
Yeah, you see the colors are coming through, connecting to the roots of nature.
Roots.
Eat the colors. Feel your feelings. Be vibrant. Go be your best self.
And they can buy this at wildchakrakids.com?
Yes.
Yes, wildchakrakids.com. Maybe we'll put a link on the
That'd be great.
thing.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much, Karina.
You're welcome.
I'm
you.
Matthew Human. We're at Finca Vida Verde. This is La Vida Verde podcast. Every Tuesday at noon, we release a new episode on YouTube. If you're listening, you can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the podcast places. But if you want to watch us and see this beautiful woman next to me, you've got to go to YouTube, youtube.com/La Vida Verde podcast, at La Vida Verde podcast. We also have a Patreon. If you like this podcast and you want to support us, please consider joining us and patronizing us. It's patreon.com/La Vida Verde podcast. We're on Instagram at Finca Vida Verde CR. And also on Facebook and all the things Finca Vida Verde. On behalf of La Vida Verde podcast and Karina Wildgoods.
Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful day.